Um, Expressions of solidarity and assertions of kinship with Palestinians are thoroughly baked into the cultural and political ethos of Irish life. Indeed, in late May 2024, the Republic of Ireland became one of the first countries to recognize Palestine as a sovereign state, along with Spain and Norway. While this moment of moral clarity has been rightly celebrated across the island, it is also true that many feel betrayed by their politicians who, in keeping with an annual tradition, visited the White House on St. Patrick's Day and ceremoniously handed Joe Biden a bowl of shamrocks, despite his active role in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. The visit came after an unsuccessful but widespread boycott campaign that pressured politicians to withdraw from the event. Much of the campaign's focus was on Sinn Féin, the party long associated with the Irish Republican Army, who boasts of their longstanding solidarity with Palestine and radical history, but who have adopted a more centrist approach in recent years. A number of songs actually came out of the boycott campaign, including Martin Leahy's No Shamrocks for Joe Biden, Hertan's Féin, which we'll listen to today, and Owen O'Canavan's Silent Spring. These songs not only emblemize the discourse about what Irish-Palestinian solidarity should look like in the wake of the Gaza genocide, but also open up the opportunity for a broader discussion of how Irish republicanism might be refashioned on our contemporary political landscape.
My song collection project was totally based around the oral tradition of singing, which is resistance in itself. Like, the west of Ireland was such a resilient place at the times when all native speakers from all over the country were pushed there at plantations and things, and speaking in Irish, and everything was banned. So my song collection project was that I would source the songs. I knew where I wanted to source them. That was just the area that I grew up in, northwest Donegal in Gweedore, and that included like Ranafast and all these places. And the oral tradition meant that these songs weren't documented correctly. They might have some old recordings, or they might have like some, like the things I was finding was that a lot of the songs were handwritten in books and they're written in Old Irish. So a lot of these things aren't accessible now. So I started making things more accessible by documenting them in, typescript instead of, Shankló, which means Old Irish script. And I notated them in the modern way of notating music. And I also just did some basic recordings of the songs that I collected. And over a year, I collected 20 songs. And the last step of the process after documenting and collecting is to disseminate them or to redistribute them. And I just felt like after I finished my master's, like everything we're talking about today with the theory and things, it just felt very academic, and that I had done this project that made sense on paper, but really these songs aren't disseminated, repurposed back into the repertoire. And I think I was maybe explaining this to Stephen one day after lockdown. This would have been 2022 or something, and he was working on his electronic stuff, and maybe I said I love to bring these songs to a wider audience. So it was an idea of Hertan. It's based on many different ethoses, but one of them is that the songs are of these ancient songs that they still exist because of the oral tradition, because of people singing them to each other and learning them by ear rather than writing them down. They lasted this long, so to sort of repurpose them and make them into a dance type of music like electronica or whatever you want to call it, that makes it more accessible for people in the modern day to actually reach their the music of their ancestors.
So electronica or electronic music is often understood to be dance music or party music. In your opinion, Catriona or Stephen, where does the political fit into, celebrating, partying, having a good time?
Go ahead for that, Catriona.
Do you want the political, where does it come in? This is it's a hard question to answer, but whenever you're sort of on a night out listening to electronic music, is that kind of what you're getting at? That's where you're freely, your mind is more open, I guess, and speaking to people who you connect with about things. And I think people who have come to her town gigs, they can really connect with this idea of like even with the pagan masks and things, it's like this utopia that reaches back before segregation and that kind of thing. It's like, let's redirect our anger at where it should be. It's as well the hawthorn tree and the vengeance and all that kind of thing. Yeah, it's at no one man but a system, as exactly it says in the Hertan speech. But yeah, I think it is like listening to electronic music is where you can connect to people on this like base level, because it's not got this, it's not Irish music, it's not English music, if you know, or pop music. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of like one of the things I suppose I sort of feel a little bit of a tension or difficulty about is, like you say, doing a type of music that people will often be kind of dancing to and sort of celebratory, but then the topic matter can be quite, even generally going out and enjoying yourself during times when there's a genocide going on and kind of the tension that you feel there is like, what is this okay? Um, and I guess the way I kind of but I guess the way I feel about that is like, dancing, celebrating is kind of the ultimate expression of freedom. And if that's what we're aiming towards, like for everybody, that's what we want for everybody. And so I feel like there is something to be said about like allowing yourself space to be free and express yourself freely and to dance. Um, but what we try to do is to do that in a context with which we're not ignoring these things. We're bringing these things up. We're going to talk about them, and we're going to try and and like connect people with them. Is like as a socialist republic as is laid out in the 1916 proclamation, or is it going to turn into this little neoliberal like tax haven for America, which the republic in a lot of ways is now? And my fear is that we're moving in that direction. So it's only going to be another year. Like the 17th of March is only going to come back around again, and this campaign, I hope, will be reborn. And it's not just like obviously, it's like Palestine is at the forefront of that at the minute because of the ongoing genocide, but that's not the only reason that we should be pressuring our politicians not to be engaging with America as America is at the minute. We would be encouraging that we imagine a different type of United Ireland, not the kind of one that they seem to be leading us towards, which is one with the close ties with America and American neoliberal politics. So in the short term, if I'm totally honest, the campaign ended up being quite divisive because once after it failed, if Sinn Féin didn't go to the White House, everyone would have been jumping with joy. But then when they did go, and there's obviously, like I said, people who support Sinn Féin within the movement and people who don't. There was then a kind of, I feel like a split that emerged and a lot of bad feeling that emerged, and the movement has just felt a little bit fractured since then. I'm just kind of hoping that that with time we can just keep. I mean, these things don't happen overnight, and we just keep trying to make that point, make that case, and keep bringing this campaign and this pressure, and hopefully start to yeah drive a wedge between Ireland and America as it is.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
I would like to congratulate you for having these difficult conversations with potential allies. I think this is more important, as you said, Stephen. It's more important than trying to talk to the other side. Is to have these sometimes very difficult conversations with people who have something that is shared, that at least there's a common ground, and winning over these potential allies is much more important than winning over, let's say, the Democrats in the US.
Activists this time engaged in a month-long West Belfast specific education campaign, which included leafleting and music and chants workshops with the Streetwise Samba Band. It is important to note that these recent conversations were born in the legacy of the Troubles era grassroots activism, promoting cultural preservation and mutual aid initiatives by West Belfast residents. paradigm-defining campaigns that flourished in spite of the violent state repression of the British. So we march past key third places and cultural landmarks in the Gaeltacht or Irish language speaking area that continue to shape the neighborhood and make West Belfast, including Radio Fáilte, Belfast's only Irish language radio station, as well as the only secondary level Irish medium school in Belfast, Costa Farsta, and both of which were originally founded without any state support, but prospered against all odds thanks to community support and the steadfast commitment of local activists, teachers, and artists. As such, he approached Catriona asking her to write a revolutionary song for Palestine in Irish, one that would be easy to learn and teach, and one that could easily be used in other contexts and travel across the island. In other words, Catriona was tasked with writing a song for the movement that also embodies and empowers movements. Catriona decided to work with an existing tune, a hymn which some of you might know under the title, We Are One in the Spirit, or They'll Know We Are Christians. While we don't really have time to unpack how the folk travels in Ireland, it is worth pointing out that since October 7th, a handful of songs have similarly taken on new life in this political moment, spreading organically.
So, Stephen and someone who was in the video as well, Cassidy and Anna and several people who I'm quite close with were organising this march, and they were looking actually for a chant that was in Irish language, because as you said, like Irish language in itself is resistance, and also the area in Belfast that we're in is the Gaeltacht quarter of the city, where all these things like the cultural centre and Culturelán is, and the radio station, and the only secondary school in Irish language. So they knew that they wanted some Irish language chants. So I had thought about translating some, and then I thought back to sort of around November time, 2023. I also wanted to write a song based on this hymn, because I was thinking about like people being unified in, you know, the sort of solidarity and the idea of solidarity and everything. So this song, I learned this song. It was one of my first experiences with music when I was about 8 years old, and there was a choir in my school, and we sang this song, They'll Know We Are Christians, but it was the Irish version, and it was Táimid Aontaithe Spirit, Táimid Aontaithe le Dia. So back in like that November time, I just couldn't think of like how that part of the song, I wanted to write something, but kind of couldn't get it to work. So I looked at the second verse of the song, which was Siúlhíimid Ilig le Chéile, we will all walk together. And then I was just thinking that's what's going to be happening on the day. Like we're all going to be walking down West Belfast to the Caterpillar factory. So it worked so well. And then the second verse is we'll all stand together. And then the third verse, as you said, sing together. And I think I wrote those three. And then I sort of wanted it to have more depth to it, because it was saying that the revolutionaries will have a victory. So I thought, well, to have victory, you need to rise up and also fight for it. And, you know, it's a resistance song, and resistance is so essential. So I added those other two verses in, and it just worked perfectly. So that was in June, and then we recorded it with, so yeah, it's so based on community. Even the song, it's like, we will do this together, we will do this together. So when I recorded the video, I wanted to bring as many musicians and like singers in as possible. You can see them in the video. Yeah, so that's why I wanted those people in the video. And just the song itself.
There's something about music. There's it's a magic sauce that can, like, you say one thing, you'd say one thing as a sentence, but then you put a melody and a rhyme to it, a rhythm to it, and it can just change the way that it lands and hits you. And I don't know what that is. I don't know why that is, but I definitely feel it and I experience that. So in terms of accessing other people, it's definitely, yeah, a good vehicle. Like I guess what I would say as well is, though I think these things are important, like music and art is important form of being political. I don't think it's the be all and end all, and I do think that I almost feel like it's important to like do these things. It's a good way of recruiting people to a cause and connecting to people and making them feel inspired maybe. But you know, it's not necessarily going to win everything on its own. You have to then it has to go side by side with action and forms of direct action or whatever that might mean, resistance, whatever that is in your given context. So yeah, I'm all about music. I think it's a very powerful tool, but I do think of it as just one part of what needs to be done. And like the energy also must go to the actual doing of things, you know, action.
I realized since I left Belfast relatively soon after the march to the Caterpillar factory, have there been any like more recent campaigns or attempts relating to Caterpillar?
We do feel that if there's very little that we can do based on the way that that factory works and it outputs in terms of interfering with it, without the support of the workers. They actually played a soundscape from Gaza, which was one of bombs, and you know, you can imagine the kind of
Yeah.
sounds that might have been there, just to kind of communicate the horror that really is the end product of these kind of companies and this kind of
Mm.
thing. So if I'm honest, personally speaking, nobody's challenged me on any of the things we've been doing, but I would be surprised if there aren't people who do harbor those kind of thoughts and beliefs.
I can't imagine a, you know, a world where music and politics aren't connected because of maybe just our upbringing, and especially through music.
In the Palestinian context, we know that traditional songs have become very political. Like even the folk songs, it has become very difficult to think of the symbols outside of politics, but also the lyrics itself through time has been infused with politics. And even if it's not overtly political, the wedding songs become political songs, or the rifle appears in the song at one point, things of that sort. So traditional music has become very much political music. Can we observe something different in Ireland, or is it completely, or something similar, or is it completely different?
No, I think it's similar. I would say, I mean, there's an example that sprung to mind there of, you know, like there's a type of a way of saying a tune with your mouth called lilting. And lilting would have emerged as a practice because there was once upon a time when, I mean, all aspects of Irish life were attacked by the British, and music was part of that. So they would have shut down. It was like illegal to have like gatherings, certain gatherings where they would play music and dance, and they confiscated instruments and that type of thing. So in order to resist that, people would say the tunes but with their mouth. So they've been denied the instruments, but then they would lilt, and so that's now part of the tradition. Lilting is just now a part of the Irish tradition, and that is a political thing. You know, that's like kind of resisting this kind of um attempt to stop you from practicing your culture. So so yeah, like, and then so practicing music, it's playing music. The revival even of the of Irish traditional music, it was Presbyterians in 1798 who had the first Belfast Harp Festival, because yeah, there was, I suppose, music and culture had to a large degree been nearly destroyed. And if it weren't for the efforts of these people, when they set up this harp festival, and they after which they asked someone to go around all of these harpists and write down the music that they had performed or that they knew. And this was the first kind of maybe efforts to actually archiving what was previously just passed on orally. And so all of that music only sort of survived because of these efforts of these people. And so yeah, practicing them um is like a way of holding on to it, but also then like reviving it and bringing it back and not letting it be destroyed. So it's like resisting again as well, I suppose. So personally, I don't think that the practice of traditional music, I do think it's part of a tradition of, you know, amplifying and playing and celebrating something that was people tried to take from us. So it's kind of political, whether you like it or not.
I found actually in Gweedore there was a priest who asked or demanded that all instruments were burned. So it wasn't just the British that were stomping down on traditional music, but the church as well, because they thought that the instruments were distracting people from their religion.
After October 7th, there were videos comparing Palestinian guys dancing while protesting or throwing stones to Native American people performing sacred dances.
I mean, a lot of our inspiration came from another project known as the Pagan Rave. It's another arts project in which people essentially reimagine and engage in some sort of pagan ritual, and then they spend a couple of hours raving, and it's a lot of fun. I would highly recommend it. And so I do feel like there's something about, you know, like for me, I guess the impression that that had on me, the dancing, you know, it's an invitation to reconnect with that part of yourself that is wild and, you know, just completely is an animal and is wild and is free and you know, like I guess, you know, euphoric kind of practices. And just then, but so whilst we don't have any specific connections in mind, I guess that's something that we would love to draw out of people, as you know, that kind of feeling or energy. Um, and in terms of like people dancing at Palestinian protests and stuff, I mean, we've seen dancing emerge at some of the protests that we've done. The Caterpillar event, there was one of the Palestinians living in Belfast is a dabka instructor, and while there was a song somebody was we were singing a song called Olo Shirava Hawalya. Olo Shirava Hawalya is a song in Irish, which is I think Jessie might have mentioned it at the start, but it's from the tradition. The lyrics were adapted uh to yeah, to inspire people to want to like it's literally it's like inspire kind of a feeling of patriotism from people during the 1916 revolution or rebellion. And so we sing it at the marches as well. And during that song, one of the Palestinians just broke into dance and was, you know, like you know, it was just a beautiful moment. And so yeah, I don't know how to articulate this. I don't exactly know why, but there's something about like just losing yourself a little bit in dance, you know, and connecting with this kind of just more, I don't know, like primal version of yourself that can emerge in these kind of scenarios or in these moments. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a powerful thing, and I think that's what we're kind of reaching towards. You know, is this? I think resistance can emerge. You know, from that. You know, I feel like it's a part of us that has been suppressed for many many years. You know, this wild aspect of our character, and so creating situations that invites that to step forward is also inviting a part of you to step forward that might be willing to push back against these kind of systems of oppression. So. Um, yeah, I guess that's what we'd like to see some singing and dancing and euphoria if possible from people at whether it's a dance or a protest or whatever. There was a wonderful moment of symbolism that emerged out of a music festival that I was recently at. We were at a band called the Wolf Tones. The Wolf Tones are one of the bands that I would have listened to growing up. They were a rebel band, a Republican rebel band. And one of the lines that they often say is sing it loud, sing it clear, which is basically they don't do anything fancy from a musical perspective. The music is just to carry the lyrics, and the lyrics are very much like, you know, one of supporting resistance and um uh yeah, republicanism, you know, and knowing our history. Um but at that gig, which was it's the first time I've seen them, though I've listened to them for years, and it was a very emotional gig, I must say. Particularly when they sang about the hunger strikes of 1981. But there was a moment when the one of the singers, one of the musicians from Kneecap, he wears a tricolor balaclava. I don't know if you're aware. So he put on the tricolor balaclava and got up on someone's shoulders, and at the same time, someone else wrapped their head in a cafe and got up on shoulders, and then they had the Palestine and Irish flags together. And it was just this moment. It was a beautiful just moment, and that happened in this gig, which sort of represents, you know, the solidarity between both of these kind of resistance movements. You know, they're slightly different time. Well, they're not really. I suppose they, yeah, coexisted alongside each other. So yeah, It was just a yeah, and the mask, like you say, is just a symbol. It's like a symbol, and it represents these things. And um, yeah. So I mean, I don't know what that means about masks, but certainly, um, yeah, I feel like there's that moment anyway. Felt very significant somehow to me. Just seeing those two things side by side in that moment, it was felt powerful. I was there during the olive harvest, so we spent a lot of time with farmers, and we were out harvesting olives in and around Hebron. Um, and yeah, like the way we were treated, the way we were received by everybody was obviously amazing. And yeah, and but then also just seeing what the day-to-day life is like for Palestinians was tough. Um, one of my most difficult days, I mean, and this is, I mean, my difficult day, this is one day for me, this is people's reality there, obviously, but was when we went to Ida refugee camp, and the day before we arrived, there was this operation where it was like a sting operation, I guess. There was some kids playing football out on the corner, and there was the Israeli military in plain clothes went and were kind of hanging around these guys playing football, and then at a singular moment they attacked the boys and like took them down. So these are people aged between 12 and like 16, maybe younger even, you know. I just remember talking to a father who could do nothing to help his son, you know, and it just like, you know, it was just so painful to hear him, you know, have his son just being locked away like that. And yeah, it's just awful.
Maybe we can connect between you and some musicians here, local musicians, and do some collaborations together. I guess he will like it. Hmm?
Absolutely, I would love to do that.
Thank you. I will pass the info via Dr. Ahmed. Ahmed, مرحبا. It's nice to hear from Irish people from the other side of the world talking about Kufia. It's good. It's a big point about awareness when we are speaking about
Internationalizing. And we hope to do other events together. I will facilitate the connection with Hazar in the future, but also we would love to hear from you anytime you have something to say. Also, we have a roundtable discussion on resistance.